I remember the cold. It clung to my bones, seeping beneath my skin like a bitter promise. The room was dark, the silence interrupted only by the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. I was alone just as I had been for years. Even in those final moments, no one came. Not my husband, Kang Jisoo, who had once vowed to cherish me. Not my so-called best friend, Yoon Minji, who smiled while driving the knife deeper into my back. And certainly not my family, who had always treated me as nothing more than a pawn. But the cruelest part? I had let them. Hey you! Welcome to Cupidoops, where love and logic are officially divorced and chaos has full custody. Like and subscribe. Chaos begins. My heart had grown so accustomed to the pain that I stopped questioning it. Betrayal became a familiar companion, and regret my closest confidant. And then, the beeping stopped. Darkness. I should have been free. Free from the weight of sorrow. Free from the lingering ache of shattered promises. But as the void swallowed me whole, I felt something else a pull, like hands dragging me from the abyss. When I opened my eyes, the world was no longer cold. It was warm. Too warm. Sunlight spilled through an old wooden window, illuminating the familiar ivory walls of my childhood room. The patterned silk curtains fluttered in the breeze, carrying the distant laughter of the servants outside. My heart lurched. I knew this place. My trembling hands reached for the ornate mirror propped against the wall. And there I saw her. Wide, startled eyes, skin unmarked by the wear of time, silky black hair cascading down delicate shoulders. 17. I was 17 again. Impossible. The word escaped me in a whisper, yet the girl in the mirror repeated it. This had to be a dream, some cruel fantasy born from a dying wish. But when I dug my nails into my palm, the sharp sting assured me otherwise. I was alive. But why? Memories unraveled like tangled thread, vivid and merciless. My father, Han Byung-chul, announcing my engagement to Kang Jisoo, a match arranged not for love, but for power. My stepmother, Lee Jung-geun, smiling with satisfaction, convinced that binding me to the Kang family would elevate her status. I had said nothing. I had simply bowed my head and accepted my fate. But this time, I slammed my fists against the mirror, the force rattling the frame. This time would be different. I wouldn't walk blindly into the same misery. I wouldn't trust Jisoo's empty promises or Minji's poisonous whispers. I had seen how their schemes unraveled, how Jisoo discarded me like a broken toy, and how Minji stole the very life I should have lived. Not again. I could hear the distant footsteps of the servants, now a reminder that the day had begun. Soon, the household would awaken. My father would summon me for breakfast, and Jung-geun would undoubtedly remind me of my duty as the eldest daughter. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I had been given a second chance. And this time, I would rewrite everything, starting with my choice of spouse. Morning light spilled into the grand dining hall, gilding the polished silverware and delicate porcelain plates. The scent of freshly brewed tea mingled with the faint sweetness of rice cakes, but I could hardly taste a thing. My hands trembled beneath the table, hidden within the folds of my silk hanbok. Across from me sat my father, Han Byung-chul, a figure of silent authority. His once jet-black hair had only a few streaks of gray, now a reminder that time had unraveled, bringing me back to the very moment I dreaded. Beside him was Lee Jung-geun, my stepmother, the very image of refined elegance. She wore a pale lavender hanbok, the embroidered cranes on the fabric, a symbol of the prosperity she so desperately craved. But I knew better. Beneath her polished words and delicate smiles was a woman who had long since mastered the art of manipulation. And then, of course, there was Han So-yoon, my younger half-sister. Innocent, oblivious, still untouched by the venom that coursed through our family. She sat quietly, her dark eyes flicking between us, unaware of the storm brewing within me. "Seo-yeon," My father's voice rumbled through the room, commanding attention. "The Kangs will arrive soon. Have you prepared yourself for the meeting?" The words clanged in my ears. I knew what he meant. This was the day Kang Jisoo would make his formal proposal, the day my fate had once been sealed. But not this time. "I won't marry him." My voice, though steady, felt foreign. For a moment, the room stood still. The soft clinking of Jung'un's spoon against her teacup halted. My father's gaze hardened, disbelief flashing across his face. "What did you say?" he asked, though I knew he had heard me perfectly well. "I said I won't marry Kang Jisoo. I said I won't marry Kang Jisoo." Jung'un's smile remained frozen, though I could see the faint twitch at the corner of her mouth. She hadn't expected this. Neither had my father. In my past life, I had been so eager to please and so desperate for their approval, but I wasn't that girl anymore. "Seoyeon," my father's voice dropped to a dangerous low, "this marriage is not simply about you. It is about the future of our family." A familiar pang twisted in my chest, but I swallowed it down. "I understand that, father. But I also understand that the Kangs are not the honorable family you believe them to be. Kang Jisoo is not a man worthy of our trust." His brows furrowed. "You've never even met him. How could you possibly know that?" Because I had lived it. I remembered the coldness in Jisoo's eyes when he grew bored of me. The way Minji whispered poison into his ear, twisting him against me. I remembered the humiliation, the heartbreak, but I couldn't say that. Not yet. "I've heard enough about his character," I replied carefully, "and I will not tie myself to a man I cannot respect." Young leaned forward, her voice laced with false concern. "My dear, this is not just about personal feelings. The Kang family's influence will secure your future. Do you truly wish to throw that away?" I met her gaze without flinching. Yes. A flicker of something dangerous crossed her eyes. My defiance unsettled her. I could see the calculations running through her mind, already searching for a way to bend me to her will. But I wouldn't break. "I have no intention of ruining our family's reputation," I continued, my voice unwavering. "But I will not sacrifice my happiness for a marriage built on lies." My father's fist clenched on the table. "You are being foolish, Seoyeon." "Perhaps," I said softly. "But I will bear the consequences of that choice. Not you." Silence engulfed the room. Young's lips pressed into a thin line, her smile now entirely gone. My father's glare remained, but even he could not deny the certainty in my voice. "Then you will refuse the Kang family when they arrive," he said finally, his tone icy. "But do not forget your actions will reflect on this household. I will not protect you from the fallout." "I understand." With that, I rose from my seat, the weight of their disapproval settling heavily on my shoulders. But even as I left the dining hall, a strange sense of freedom bloomed within me. For the first time in both my lives, I had chosen for myself, and that choice would change everything. The air was thick with tension, though the golden morning sunlight poured through the tall windows, illuminating the gleaming floors of the Han estate. My father's stern words from breakfast still echoed in my mind. "Do not forget your actions will reflect on this household." But I did not regret my decision. I would not marry Kang Jisoo. The memory of his cold eyes and condescending smile from my past life haunted me. Back then, I had foolishly believed he loved me. I had ignored the lingering whispers, the stolen glances he exchanged with Minji, my so-called friend. Every betrayal had been veiled beneath empty affection. But now, I would no longer be that blind, desperate girl. I stepped into the grand courtyard, the stone path leading to the estate gates. Servants bustled around, though they cast curious glances my way. Word of my refusal had undoubtedly spread like wildfire, but there was no time for whispers now. I had another matter to address. "Nari," I called, my voice steady. Kim Nari, my personal maid, appeared at my side in an instant. She was ever diligent, her presence a quiet comfort. The slight crease in her brow betrayed her worry, but she masked it well. "My lady," she bowed, "I need to speak with you." "Of course," she replied, though hesitation flickered in her eyes. We moved to the privacy of my chamber, the soft silk curtains muffling the chatter from the courtyard. Nari closed the door behind us, her hands clasped neatly before her. "Did you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Her gaze faltered. "My lady." In my past life, I trusted people I shouldn't have. I was blind to their schemes, but I will not make that mistake again. My voice hardened. "Tell me, Nari, did you know about Minji and Kang Jisoo?" Her lips parted, but no words came. "I remember the stolen moments," I continued, each memory sharpening like a blade. The whispers in dark corners, the way Minji smiled as though she had already won. In my past life, I had convinced myself it was all in my head. Minji was my friend, wasn't she? She had laughed with me, shared secrets, and stood by my side during the wedding preparations. But it was all a lie. "My lady," Nari finally spoke, her voice trembling. I suspected, but I had no proof. And you were so happy." Happy. That word felt bitter now. "I should have told you," she whispered, guilt etched across her face. "But I feared what would happen if I spoke against them." I understood. Nari was just a maid. Speaking against the Kang family or Lady Minji could have cost her everything. But even so, the knowledge that the betrayal had been visible to others yet hidden from me only fueled my resolve. "This time, I will see things clearly," I said firmly. "I will not be deceived." By midday, the estate grew restless. The Kang family had arrived. A polished black carriage with golden embellishments stood at the front entrance, flanked by guards in dark robes. Kang Jisoo's family was wealthy, but it was their influence in the royal court that made them dangerous. And yet I did not fear them. I descended the marble steps with deliberate grace, my ivory and gold hanbok trailing behind me. Every step was a reminder that I was no longer powerless. "Seoyeon!" My father's voice boomed as I approached the receiving hall. His glare burned with disapproval, but I met it head-on. Kang Jisoo stood beside him, dressed in the finest silk robes, his dark hair swept back in a flawless style. He was handsome, dangerously so. But I knew better than to be deceived by appearances. "Lady Han," Jisoo greeted, a polite smile curling at his lips. "It is a pleasure to see you again." Liar. In my past life, that same smile had concealed the venom lurking beneath. How many times had I believed his words? How many nights had I waited for affection that never came? But no longer. "The pleasure is not mine," I replied, my voice calm. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. He hadn't expected this. "Good." "Seoyeon," my father hissed, "do not forget yourself." "I have not forgotten," I said, my gaze never leaving Jisoo's. "In fact, I remember everything." The air in the hall thickened. Even Lady Kang and Lord Kang shifted uncomfortably. The once certain alliance now wavered. "I will not accept your proposal," I declared, "and I will not stand by and pretend that the Kang family's intentions are honorable." Jisoo's smile faltered. "You speak as though we have wronged you, Lady Han, but I assure you—" "Assurances mean nothing without truth," I cut him off. "And I know the truth. The betrayal you thought was well hidden, it was not." Minji wasn't here, but her presence lingered like a stain. In my past life, she had gloated, certain that no one would believe me. But I no longer needed anyone's belief. I had my own voice now. "You would have made a mockery of me," I continued. "But not this time." My father opened his mouth to object, but I turned to him, my voice softening. "Father, I know you wished for this union to bring prosperity, but the Kangs are not what they seem." Jisoo's jaw tightened. "You will regret this, Lady Han." "Perhaps," I said, my eyes unwavering. But I would rather live with regret than be bound to a man who knows nothing of loyalty. The silence that followed was deafening. The Kang family withdrew without another word, their pride undoubtedly wounded. My father's face remained unreadable, but I knew the weight of my decision would not be forgotten. Yet even as the heavy doors closed behind them, I felt nothing but relief. I had faced the first step in rewriting my fate. And I had won. "I wonder," I began, my voice steady but sharp, "did you think I would never find out? That I would remain the foolish woman who believed your lies?" Jisoo's smug expression faltered. I relished the sight. "Minji," I continued, her name tasting bitter on my tongue. "She was never just my friend, was she?" Gasps rippled through the room. Even my father stiffened. The whispers grew louder, but I gave them no chance to settle. While I played the devoted fiancée, she played the devoted mistress. My words rang out like a whip, lashing through the false dignity they wore. How many stolen glances did you share? How many promises whispered in the dark, all while I stood at your side blind to your treachery? Jisoo's jaw clenched. "You have no proof." "Don't I?" I stepped forward, my eyes locked on his. I remember the way Minji clutched her handkerchief whenever she saw us together, how she never once celebrated our engagement, only endured it. And when you disappeared late at night, it wasn't business that called you, was it? No, it was her. "You speak nonsense," Jisoo spat, though the fear in his eyes betrayed him. "Then tell me," I challenged, my voice low but firm. "Was it nonsense when I saw the silk ribbon you gifted her? The very same one I once admired only to see it tied around her wrist the next day. Was it nonsense when the servants whispered of her frequent visits to your estate? Or perhaps I imagined the way she laughed, so certain of her victory, knowing that I would never suspect my own fiancé and closest friend." The color drained from Jisoo's face. "And let us not forget," I added with a bitter smile, "how she dared to wear Phoenix hairpin when we visit a mockery of what little shame she had left." The weight of my words hung thick in the air. Jisoo stood motionless, his composure shattered. There was no denying it now. The veil of deception had been torn away. "Your betrayal may have broken me once," I said, my voice unwavering. "But this time, I stand tall, and I will not fall." The morning after my confrontation with Kang Jisoo in front of his parents, the world outside my family estate buzzed with restless curiosity. Though the sun spilled its golden light over the courtyard, it did little to warm the biting tension in the air. I had exposed the truth, tearing apart the polished facade Kang Jisoo had built. But in doing so, I had also invited the storm that followed. "Seoyeon." My father's voice broke the stillness as he stepped into the drawing room, his expression unreadable. His broad shoulders bore the weight of our family's legacy, and I could see the worry etched in the lines of his face. "Father," I greeted, rising from the velvet chaise, "I assume you've heard the rumors." "I have," he replied curtly, his gaze darkening. "The Kangs are furious. Kang Jisoo's mother, Lady Heijin, has already sent word. She demands a public apology." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "An apology? For what? For refusing to live as a pawn in their games?" He exhaled sharply. "Seoyeon, while I do not question the truth of your accusations, the Kangs are not without influence. Their allies will not stand idly by." "I am prepared for that." My voice was calm, but the weight of my resolve was unshakable. "Let them bear their fangs. I will not cower." My father studied me, the fierce determination in my eyes no doubt reminding him of the daughter he thought he had lost. For once I saw something flicker within him, pride. "Then we stand firm," he said at last. "But know this, Seoyeon, the battle has only just begun." By midday, the city's whispers had grown louder. Servants scurried with news, their hushed voices carrying fragments of gossip. Kang Jisoo claims Lady Han fabricated the accusations out of jealousy. Lady Minji is said to be devastated. She wept before the court, insisting her innocence. I expected no less from them. The Kangs would never admit defeat so easily. In my past life, they had excelled at twisting the narrative, painting themselves as the wronged party. But this time, I would not let their lies take root. Lady Seoyeon. I turned to find Kim Nari at the doorway, her expression tense. A messenger has arrived from the Kangs. Let him in. A young man clad in dark robes entered, bowing deeply. He held out a sealed letter, the crimson wax bearing the Kang family crest. Without hesitation, I broke the seal, my eyes scanning the sharp, deliberate strokes of ink. To Lady Han Seoyeon, the disgrace you have brought upon the Kang family will not be ignored. By your false accusations, you have tarnished the name of my son, Kang Jisoo, and humiliated our house. You will offer a public apology before the court within 3 days. Failure to comply will result in severe consequences. Lady Kang Haejin. I folded the letter slowly, the words pressing down like a vice. Severe consequences. They're making their move, I murmured. But so will I. That evening, as twilight bathed the estate in a pale glow, I received yet another visitor. Only this time, it was not a messenger, but a man I had once ignored and foolishly underestimated. Yoon Ji-won. His arrival was without fanfare, a deliberate contrast to the dramatic displays of the Kang family. Clad in a simple dark hanbok, he carried an air of calm authority. "My lady," he greeted, bowing respectfully. "I hope I am not intruding." "Not at all." I gestured toward the veranda, where the lanterns cast a soft glow. "Please." We walked in silence for a moment, the evening breeze carrying the distant hum of the city. "I heard about Lady Kang's letter," Ji-won finally said. "They intend to pressure you into submission." "They won't succeed," my voice was firm, "but I am not naive. Their influence runs deep." "True," he nodded, "but they underestimate you. That is their greatest mistake." I studied him, the steady resolve in his gaze offering a rare comfort. In my past life, I had dismissed him as nothing more than a scholar with no ambition. But now, I saw him for what he truly was, a man of integrity. "I will stand by you, Lady Han," he continued. "The Kangs will seek to control the court's narrative. But with the right allies, we can ensure the truth prevails." "Thank you, Ji-won." I lowered my head in gratitude. "Your support means more than I can say." He offered a faint smile, though his expression remained serious. "The court will not be kind, but neither will we." And with that, we sealed our unspoken alliance, a partnership forged not by desperation, but by resolve. 3 days passed in a blur. The court was restless, eager for the scandal to unfold. My refusal to apologize had only further fueled the anticipation. The nobles gathered like vultures, waiting to see whether the Han family would crumble, but I would not crumble. On the morning of the summons, I stood before the mirror, Nari carefully fastening the final gold pin into my hair. My hanbok, a shade of soft lavender, flowed around me like a whisper of defiance. "Are you certain about this, my lady?" Nari asked, concern flickering in her eyes. "I am." The grand court awaited. Lady Kang Haejin and her son would undoubtedly be there, their false righteousness on full display. But they no longer held power over me. With Ji-won at my side and the truth as my weapon, I would face them. And this time, it would be Kang Jisoo and Minji who would tremble. The storm had arrived, but I was ready. The grand court was a theater of gleaming marble pillars and golden chandeliers, but today it was nothing more than a pit of vipers. Nobles had gathered in their finest robes, the weight of their anticipation hanging heavy in the air. They weren't here to seek justice, no, they came to witness a downfall. Lady Kang Haejin sat at the forefront, her expression a mask of cold elegance. At her side, Kang Jisoo stood tall, though I could see the strain in his jaw. He wore the same polished demeanor he always had, the perfect son of a noble house. But beneath that facade, I knew the cracks were widening. And Minji, dressed in pale pink silk, clutched a pristine handkerchief, as though the mere thought of standing trial for her misdeeds brought her to the brink of tears. The performance had already begun. I was not afraid. Nari's voice echoed in my mind as I had prepared that morning. "My lady, they will twist your words. Stand firm." I had nodded then, and I would do so now. Today, the truth would no longer cower in the shadows. Lady Han Seoyeon, the presiding noble, Lord Im Seokjin, addressed me with a practiced air of neutrality. His stern eyes held a faint curiosity, as though he too awaited my undoing. "You stand accused of defaming the name of the Kang family and tarnishing the honor of Kang Jisoo and Lady Minji." He paused, his voice reverberating across the hall. "The Kangs demand a public apology." Lady Kang Haejin rose gracefully, her voice honeyed with feigned sorrow. "My family has suffered greatly from these baseless accusations," she declared, her eyes flicking toward the sea of nobles. "Lady Han's claims are nothing more than the bitter words of a scorned woman." Gasps fluttered through the crowd, but I held my ground. Let them murmur, let them doubt. It would not last. "I demand a formal apology," she continued, her hand resting delicately on Jisoo's arm. "Only then can the honor of the Kang family be restored." All eyes turned to me, but I did not waver. "With all due respect, Lady Kang," I said, my voice even, "I have no apology to give." A ripple of shock moved through the court. I could feel their disbelief, the audacity of a woman who dared defy one of the most influential families in the land. Lady Kang's lips twitched, though she quickly masked it with a saccharine smile. "Then you deny your false claims?" she pressed. "I deny nothing," I answered. "In fact, I stand by every word." "Lady Han," Lord Seokjin's tone grew pointed, "you understand the gravity of your statement?" "I do." From the shadows, Yoon Jawan stepped forward, his presence commanding without the need for embellishment. He held a leather-bound ledger in his hands, its seal unmistakable, the very records that Kang Jisoo and his family had sought to bury. "My lord," Jawan addressed, his voice steady, "I have obtained evidence supporting Lady Han's claims." Kang Jisoo stiffened, the blood drained from his face as Jawan presented the ledger before the court. "These documents reveal financial transactions between Kang Jisoo and a private estate under Lady Minji's name. The property, purchased mere weeks before Lady Han's original engagement, was intended as a retreat for the two of them." Jawan's eyes flickered toward Jisoo. "Is this not true?" The crowd erupted into hushed murmurs. I don't know what absurd claims you're making." Jisoo's voice cracked, his polished facade crumbling. "This is slander." "Oh?" I stepped closer, my eyes never leaving his. "Then perhaps you can also deny the countless letters exchanged between you and Lady Minji. Letters detailing your plans to ruin my family's name and secure your own rise?" Jiwan handed the letters to Lord Seokjin. The damning words spilled forth, written in Jisoo's own hand. "Once I am free of the Han family, we will have all the power we need. Lady Minji, I swear, you will have the title you deserve." The court fell silent. Lady Minji, her feigned innocence shattering, stumbled back. "Jisoo, you promised—" "Enough!" Lady Kang Haejin's voice trembled with barely concealed rage. "These are lies. Fabrications." But the evidence was undeniable. "You built your schemes on the belief that no one would dare challenge you," I said, my voice unwavering. "You thought a woman abandoned by her fiancé would remain silent. But I am no longer that woman." The court's verdict came swiftly. Though the Kangs attempted to salvage what little dignity remained, the nobles had seen too much. Jisoo's reputation was in ruins, and Minji's name whispered only in shame. But as I stepped through the grand doors of the court, I knew my true victory was not merely in their downfall. It was in the strength I had reclaimed the voice I had found once more. Yoon Ji-won waited for me outside, his expression unreadable. "You were remarkable," he said quietly. I smiled, the weight of the past finally lifting from my shoulders. "No, Ji-won, I was simply free." And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I truly believed it. The echoes of the court's verdict lingered in the halls like the final notes of a mournful song. The Kang family had fled, their downfall leaving behind only whispers of disgrace. But even with the dust settling, the air remained thick with anticipation. I, Han Seoyeon, had won. Not merely against Kang Jisoo and Lady Minji, but against the chains of my past life. I stood before the world no longer as the betrayed fiancée, but as a woman who reclaimed her voice. Yet, in the stillness that followed, a question gnawed at the edges of my mind. What now? The following days passed in a blur. Couriers delivered letters from nobles, some laced with admiration, others dripping with curiosity. Servants whispered of Lady Han's victory, the tale twisting with each telling. But I paid them little mind. Instead, I stood on the balcony of the Han estate, gazing over the sprawling city. The morning breeze carried the scent of early blooms, and yet my thoughts remained clouded. "You have reclaimed your honor, my lady. But what will you do with it?" Nari's words echoed in my mind. She had been my unwavering pillar. Yet even she knew that this victory was not the end. A soft knock pulled me from my thoughts. "My lady," Nari's voice was gentle, "a visitor has arrived." The drawing room was flooded with golden sunlight as I entered. Waiting within was none other than Yoon Ji-won. He stood tall, his dark hair neatly tied back, though a few strands had fallen loose. The stoicism he wore in the court had softened, replaced by something unreadable. "Lady Han," he greeted with a respectful bow. "Master Yoon," I returned, though the formality felt unnecessary. After everything, he was no longer just an ally. "I had expected you sooner," I said, allowing a small smile. "I assume the court has kept you busy." "The aftermath was extensive," Ji-won admitted. "The Kang family's influence has crumbled. Many of their supporters have withdrawn, fearful of sharing their fate." "And Kang Jisoo?" Ji-won's jaw tightened. "He attempted to flee the capital, but the magistrate has placed him under house arrest. His reputation will not recover." I nodded, the satisfaction I had once longed for now settling into a hollow sort of victory. But Ji-won's gaze lingered, as though there was more he wished to say. "There is another matter," he began carefully. "The Emperor has taken notice of your actions. He commends your courage and—" He hesitated, then drew a folded parchment from his sleeve. "He has extended an invitation." My heart quickened. "The Emperor?" "The Spring Festival," Ji-won clarified. "A formal gathering at the palace. It is said he wishes to meet you in person." 1,000 thoughts flooded my mind. The Emperor's attention was a double-edged sword. It could bring honor or scrutiny. But even so, this was a chance to step beyond the shadows of my past. "I will attend," I said firmly. Ji-won's expression remained unreadable, though a flicker of approval passed through his eyes. "There is one more thing," he added, his voice low. "The Emperor has also requested—" he paused, "that you consider remarrying." The words struck me harder than I anticipated. Remarrying? After everything? The memories of Kang Jisoo's betrayal clawed at my mind, but I pushed them aside. "I see," I managed, though my voice wavered. "And is that the Emperor's wish?" "It is a suggestion," Ji-won clarified, "but one that many nobles will watch closely. Your victory has given you power, Lady Han. How you wield it is now yours to decide." Days passed, and the weight of the Emperor's invitation settled heavily on my shoulders. The palace would be a nest of politics, every step scrutinized. And then there was the matter of marriage. Kang Jisoo's betrayal had scarred me deeply. The thought of trusting another man, of opening my heart once more, it felt impossible. Yet, despite the fear, I could not ignore the quiet warmth that stirred when Jiwon's name crossed my mind. He had stood by my side when no one else dared to. But was that reason enough? I sat beneath the courtyard's cherry blossoms, their petals drifting like snow. Nari knelt beside me, her hands deftly arranging a tray of tea. "My lady," she began softly, "have you considered the Emperor's words?" "I have," I replied, "but the answer still eludes me." Nari's gaze was steady. "Not all men are like Kang Jisoo." I knew that. Jiwon was nothing like him, but fear was a stubborn beast. "Perhaps," she continued, "the choice is not solely about marriage. It is about what future you wish to build." Her words struck something deep within me. The past no longer held me captive. The path before me was mine alone to shape. And for the first time, I felt the stirrings of hope. The day of the spring festival arrived in a flurry of silk and gold. Every corner of the capital buzzed with anticipation. Nobles, merchants, and commoners alike had gathered to witness the splendor of the imperial celebration. At the Han estate, the servants moved swiftly, adorning the grand courtyard with fresh blossoms. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, their crimson glow casting a soft light. But the true brilliance lay within the walls of the imperial palace, where the emperor himself would host the evening's festivities. As the carriage pulled into the grand palace gates, I felt the weight of the moment settle over me. Clad in an elegant sapphire handbook embroidered with golden cranes, I held my head high. The rumors of my triumph had reached far and wide, and now all eyes would be on me. The guards announced my arrival, and the massive doors of the grand hall opened. The room was a masterpiece of opulence. Jeweled chandeliers glittered above, and silk banners cascaded down the marble walls. Musicians played a soft, lilting tune as nobles exchanged pleasantries. But as I entered, the hum of conversation faltered. Heads turned. I felt the lingering gazes, some curious, others wary. There she is, the lady who exposed Kang Jisoo. They say she faced him without fear, a woman of courage and beauty. The whispers didn't shake me. Instead, I met their eyes without hesitation. Let them see the woman who had defied betrayal and emerged stronger. Lady Han. The deep voice was unmistakable. I turned to find Yoon Jiwon standing at the edge of the crowd. Clad in a dark navy hanbok embroidered with silver threads, he radiated authority, yet his expression softened as our eyes met. "You look," Jiwon hesitated, though his admiration was clear. "Radiant." A warmth spread through me, but I quickly composed myself. "And you, Master Yoon, are as composed as ever." He offered a slight smile. "The Emperor is eager to meet you." With a nod, I allowed Jiwon to escort me through the hall. Nobles parted before us, the murmurs of curiosity growing louder. But none dared challenge me, not after witnessing the fall of Kang Jisoo. The emperor, dressed in resplendent gold robes, awaited on his elevated throne. His piercing gaze held the weight of countless years of rule. Beside him sat the empress, her serene expression betraying little. "Lady Han Seoyeon," the emperor's voice rang out, "you have brought great justice to our court. Few possess the courage you displayed." "I merely sought the truth, Your Majesty," I replied, bowing deeply. "I am honored by your words." He studied me for a long moment. "It is not only your courage that has drawn my attention, it is your resilience. The court thrives when led by those of unwavering spirit." I held my breath, awaiting his next words. "Lady Han," he continued, "the matter of your future has been much discussed. Many noble houses would seek to unite with yours through marriage." The words echoed through the hall, whispers erupted once more. I could feel the weight of the nobles' expectations, the hope that I would align myself with one of their sons. But it was the emperor's next statement that silenced the room. "Yet I do not command you. I ask only this: who among the nobles would you choose to stand by your side?" All eyes turned to me. The air grew thick with anticipation. I felt the pressure of the moment, the weight of countless opinions. But unlike the past, I was no longer bound by fear. I had rewritten my fate once. Now I would do so again. Lifting my chin, I spoke with unwavering clarity. "I choose not for status or power," I began, my voice carrying through the grand hall, "but for loyalty, kindness, and unwavering strength." A murmur swept through the crowd. I allowed my gaze to drift, pausing only when it met the steady eyes of Yoon Ji-won. "I choose Master Yoon Ji-won." Gasps erupted. Ji-won's expression remained calm, though a flicker of surprise crossed his face. Then, slowly, it softened into something far deeper. The emperor's eyes gleamed with amusement. "A bold choice, but one I find admirable." He turned to Ji-won. "And you, Master Yoon? Do you accept the hand of Lady Han?" Without hesitation, Ji-won stepped forward, his voice firm. "With all my heart, Your Majesty." That night, beneath the glow of the lanterns, Ji-won and I stood side by side. There was no need for grand declarations. The understanding that passed between us was enough. "I never expected this," I admitted softly. "Neither did I," he replied. "But I am grateful." For the first time in years, I felt the chains of my past life fully break. I had reclaimed my name, my honor, and my freedom, and now, with Ji-won beside me, I would embrace whatever the future held, no longer a victim of betrayal, no longer a pawn in the schemes of others. I was Han Seoyeon, a woman reborn, and this time, the story was mine to write. What's your take on this? Comment below, like and subscribe.